She has received the Joshua Obadiah Williams Award at the brief ceremony held at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College on Thursday, the 23rd of March. That award is given to the student with top grades in the UE examination and teaching practicum in the Division of Teacher Education. Let me also congratulate Mr. Shervin Green, well known to us all. He's the Associate Head Coach at Monroe College, and he has been awarded the 2022 Atlantic Regional Assistant Coach of the Year for both men and women for the 7th time. So kudos to Mr. Green. Let me also congratulate my own daughter, Gabriella Brantley, and Miss Janelle Nisbet and their team for executing a massive careers fair at the Culturama Village. This brought together scores of students and businesses as they do their part to try and prepare students for future careers. The Ministry of Education is very pleased, and I join them in commending Dr. Lornette Mills, a daughter of Nevis, and the Dr. Lornette Mills Charitable Foundation. She has recently donated some $43,200, a donation which sponsors 48 students on Nevis throughout the high schools and primary schools in the school meals program. Dr. Mills is a Nevisian by birth. In fact, she's from my birth home place as well, Hanley's Road. And she established the Dr. Lornette Mills Educational Fund in 2013 and renamed it the Dr. Lornette Mills Charitable Fund in 2016. Now, what I think is of particular note is that these funds are provided from Dr. Mills's own resources. She does not seek nor accept donations. So this is a Nevisian medical professional living in the diaspora from Hanley's Road, who's given back in a very substantive and substantial way to the young people in Nevis. The foundation is set up to provide assistance to Nevisians at home and in the diaspora, and to facilitate the pursuit of education and development of our children, especially those in need. The foundation also sponsors an island-wide school quiz in Nevis. Congrats also to Mr. Rico Clark, my dear friend, who manages the fund on behalf of Dr. Mills. And so I believe this is a real feel-good story, a sum of $43,200, very significant contribution from our own resources. The Ministry of Agriculture wishes to express its profound thanks to all who attended the Agriculture Open Day at the ETW Park. Congratulations especially to Director Randy Elliott and his organizing team, as well as all the participants. The event is being dubbed a massive success. Kudos, of course, to the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and Deputy Premier of the Island of Nevis, the Prominent Secretary, Huey Sargent, and their entire team for the excellent work that they have continued to do. And by way of announcement, as we continue to incentivize and work with our farmers, the Department of Agriculture will, until the end of May, be running a special on fertilizer with a 75% discount on a bag of fertilizer. Additionally, compost is also available for only $25 per bag. We continue to respond in a very aggressive way to COVID-19 by emphasizing food security. And so 75% discount on fertilizers and compost available for $25 per bag. Let me pivot to the Public Works Department, more specifically the Ministry of Works, more specifically now the Nevis Water Department. During the month of March, the Nevis Water Department will have celebrated World Water Day in collaboration with the St. Kitts Water Department, and a host of activities occurred. As we continue under the leadership of the Honorable Spencer Brand to build out the infrastructure for water on the island, I am proud to announce that the Zetland Pond Hill Reservoir site refurbishment works has gone out for bids. The bids were submitted on the 15th of March. They're being evaluated, and we hope to have that project commence very soon. In the Nevis Labor Department, I take some time to congratulate my classmate, Ms. Julia O'Loughlin. She has been appointed as Acting Chief Labor Officer within the Nevis Labor Department. Ms. O'Loughlin was office manager for many years within the department, and since the retirement of the former Chief Labor Officer, she has been dealing with the day-to-day operations in that department. There is an ongoing process to select a Chief Labor Officer, and that process will, of course, be completed at some stage. In the interim, Ms. O'Loughlin will act as a Chief Labor Officer, and we have every confidence that she will carry out her duties. Let me also indicate that the Nevis Labor Department will reintroduce their public education awareness program towards a better workplace during the week of the 11th of April, 2022 on television. They will also seek to have another careers fair, which is slated for the period June 20th to 1st July. And the fair will target 4th and 5th formers and will highlight skills development geared towards employment opportunities and entrepreneurship. If I can segue to physical planning and the environment, today at 2 p.m. at Hard Times in Gingerland, we will have the official opening of the Nevis Peak National Park Interpretation Center. This is a project that was undertaken with funding from GEF, the Global Environmental Facility, the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the Nevis Island Administration. I'm sure at the opening at 2 p.m. today, we will hear more. In terms of public works proper, construction work continues on the welding and body repair shop at the government garage. By the next reporting period, that is when I hope to be here next, we hope that building to be fully completed. The Butler's Road project, as you know, is a major project that is ongoing, and that is ongoing now with the construction of retaining walls along the main village carriageways. The installation of underground and drainage structures in the vicinity of the old public bath will be the next course of work, in addition to continued property wall adjustments. The road adjacent to the Charleston Methodist Church is still under construction. Drain reconstruction from Ward Cross to the old Credit Union building. The road has been milled and is being prepared for asphalt. It is expected that we will be done there during the week April 4th to 8th. The department is also undertaking reconstruction of a culvert in Church Ground, directly across from the clerk's residence. The reinforced concrete retaining wall on the western side is currently under construction and will be completed shortly. Out of an abundance of caution and to keep the work zone clear of traffic, the decision was taken to keep the road closed rather than to partially open it. And so that road will remain closed until further notice. The department has also completed the asphalt access road for the fire tender station at the Vance Amory International Airport. They are also currently fully engaged in the massive renovation work at the netball complex. Our building team has been on the ground performing repairs and upgrades at that facility, and the paving team has milled the 3 courts. And by the next time I'm here, I hope to report that the 3 netball courts would have received brand new asphalt services. That, ladies and gentlemen, is part of the ongoing program of this government to upgrade our sporting facilities across the island. You will recall that I have hitherto reported that we have upgraded basketball and various courts in Bath. We have done so in Ramsbury. We have done so in Jessops. We have done so in Cotton Ground. We have done so at the VOJN. We have done so in Cherry Gardens. And we are about to embark on the reconstruction of the court at Brown Pasture as well. So this is part and parcel of the overall development of our sporting infrastructure on the island of Nevis. The concrete road from the power plant to Lefco is now 100% completed, and we are happy again that we have been able to deliver on yet another project through the Honorable Spencer Brand and his team. I'm also happy to report that works to significantly upgrade the fuel storage and dispensing at the government repair shop is ongoing. To date, the old shell tanks have been removed, and a new single 6,000-gallon split tank for gasoline and diesel has been successfully installed. We expect that work to be done within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Switching to the Ministry of Health, the Alexandria Hospital is, as I reported on the last occasion, now offering PCR and antigen testing services. You must register with the lab by calling them at least a day prior, and they will, of course, take care of your needs. We are hopeful that our people will use the service available there. We have tried to make the price as affordable as possible. You will need a valid official picture ID and proof of payment to be presented to the nurse prior to being swabbed. Results will be available within 24 hours and so your turnaround time is pretty fast. I also have some excellent news, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, I've come week after week as we talk about building out our human and physical infrastructure in health, and said to you that we have been suffering from a shortage of nurses. That has been an ongoing problem that we have faced, and we are not alone in that. It is a dilemma that the entire Caribbean region has been facing. We have continued to aggressively seek to recruit nurses and also seek to encourage our young people to take up nursing as a profession. I am pleased to announce today that we have secured the services of 3 additional Philippine nurses to work at the Alexandria Hospital. We take the opportunity to welcome Nurse Dino Carolino, who's male, Nurse Lovely Lariosa, and Nurse Christina Dadula. Those are 3 nurses that we've recruited from the Philippines who have joined us. We welcome them to Nevis. We are also pleased to welcome 2 local nurses who have completed their nursing program at CFBC, Nurse Vincia Hendrickson and Nurse Akissa Farrell. It must also be noted that since our appeal in 2021 for persons to enter the nursing profession, 4 individuals have entered the nursing assistant program and 4 have entered the bachelor's degree program at CFBC. All students are given financial support from the Nevis Island Administration. And so I'm happy that our entreaties have not fallen on deaf ears and that we are slowly building up our nursing cohort to provide relief. Many people would not know that during the pandemic in particular, we had some nurses working very long shifts, 12 hours and sometimes longer. And so the nursing shortage has really had an effect on us and taken a toll on our nursing staff. And we're happy that we have been able to recruit not just from abroad, but also local nurses as well. And we are delighted that local persons are being attracted to the nursing profession. The Gender Affairs Department has successfully executed a number of activities in recognition of International Women Month 2022 under the theme Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. The department was instrumental in advocating for greater gender equality through a series of gender sensitization workshops. We retooled over 50 individuals in the areas of plumbing and millinery. And for those of you wondering what millinery is, I was wondering too. That's when people make hats and fascinators and things like that. We have commissioned yet another gender-based mural, hosted its first ever gender expo, and an awards ceremony recognizing the contribution of women in the various communities. The month culminated on Sunday, 27th March, with music and a message at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. Platinum sponsor was the Bank of Nevis International. They, of course, thank, and the government thanks, all the organizers and sponsors for the various events. Now, to some fun news, Culturama. Culturama is well and truly on. It will be celebrated this year from July 21st to August 2nd. It will be the first normal Culturama, we hope, since, of course, the onset of this dreadful pandemic. As preparations continue, the winning slogan has been selected, and it is Fete and Celebrate, Nevis Culturama 48. Fete and Celebrate, Nevis Culturama 48. The winning slogan was penned by Hard Times resident Verna Thibault and was selected from a record number of 461 entries. Ms. Thibault will receive a cash prize of $500, a plaque, and 2 complimentary tickets to all Culturama 48 activities. We, of course, join the Culturama Secretariat and the Ministry of Culture to congratulate Ms. Thibault, and we thank all who participated. Again, Fete and Celebrate, Nevis Culturama 48. Meantime, and you ladies who are here, members of the press, this is good news for you as well. The senior pageants are open for registration. The Miss Culture Queen, Miss Culture Swimwear, and for the gentlemen here, members of the press, Mr. Cool. So, they're open for registration. We're inviting you all to register and to compete. The senior pageants, Miss Culture Queen, Miss Culture Swimwear, and Mr. Cool, and Mr. and Mrs. Talented Youth Pageant, the Junior and Senior Kaiso Contest, the Soca Monarch Contest, the Junior and Senior Cultural Street Parades, and Emancipation Juve Troop. Registration forms are available at the Culturama Secretariat, or you can go online at www.culturamanevis.com. Now, completed forms should be returned to the Secretariat no later than 4 p.m. of the closing date stipulated in each form. Youth Month 2022 will be celebrated on Nevis during the month of April under the theme, What's New? A Green, Clean Youth Month 22. As the theme suggests, the focus for this year will be on the environment and the need to bring more awareness to young persons on the importance of having a clean and healthy environment. We will have various events, including a church service, Youth Day of Prayer, Marine Awareness Week, Youth Beach Games, and a green camp targeting students 5 to 16 years old. In tourism, I am delighted, members of the press, to report that after a 2-year hiatus, our Nevis Tourism Authority is on the road again, promoting the tourism product of the island of Nevis. Miss Julie Claxton would have joined her counterparts from St. Kitts, from the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, and also sales managers with responsibility for the UK and Europe, and they would have been in the UK market for the last week, participating in various events, including Unite Caribbean, one-on-one meetings with tour operators, and we hosted a lunch and learn with travel agents, where hotel representatives were also present. We met and talked about Nevis tourism offers with travel writers, journalists, and influencers, and held meetings with the various hotel representatives in the UK. Bear in mind that as part of our ambassador program, we also have Mel B, the famous Spice Girl, who, known as Scary Spice, has her roots here on the island of Nevis. And in fact, she did a brilliant interview just yesterday, I believe, that has been circulated, where on UK television she celebrated the fact that she's been named a tourist ambassador for the island of Nevis, which she described as home for her, and also that she has just received an MBE from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And so we are well and truly out there. In addition to being in the UK, we have had 2 persons in Dubai at the Dubai Expo, again promoting tourism here in Nevis. We have had our CEO of the Nevis Tourism Authority, Mr. Devon Liebert, and the chair of the board of directors, Mrs. Pamela Martin. They're both currently in the United Arab Emirates, meeting with investors, meeting with tourism stakeholders, and trying to create awareness in that market of the island of Nevis and all that we offer. Nevis has also been shortlisted, great news, as a Caribbean's leading honeymoon destination in the 29th World Travel Awards. This World Travel Awards, established in 1993, to acknowledge and celebrate excellence across all key sectors of the travel, tourism, and hospitality industries. The brand is recognized today as the ultimate platinum standard. You can help Nevis top the list with your vote by registration and voting, which is open until May 3rd. You can visit www.worldtravelawards.com/vote to cast your vote. Also good news, I hope this will get a headline, that we will this year be hosting our annual Mango Festival. That, of course, was also put on hold because of COVID, but we are roaring back. And this year, we have issued already a save the date. It should be Friday, July 1st to Sunday, July 3rd. Please make plans to attend. Our Mango Festival is back. We are also hosting this year, during the month of May, beginning from May 1st to May 31st, the calendar of activities for our annual Exposition Nevis 2022. And this, of course, is largely put on by the Ministry of Tourism. Exposition Nevis, all things tourism, rethinking Nevisian tourism, May 1st to 31st. And you'll hear a lot more about that, but I can tell you that some of the activities include the Jessup's Seafood Fiesta. We'll have an exhibition at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. We're going to have a Nevisian Heritage Open Day, a Bath Community Fair, at Fort Charles. We will have various exercises and talks, entrepreneurship workshop. We're going to have the Bank of Nevis Tourism Youth Congress, and we hope to have the New Rivers Farmers Association Open Day at the New River site as well. The Ministry of Tourism Awards, we will end it all, will happen in June, and that will be at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. So we are again coming back, storming back in a very positive way to again bring our island back to some sense of normalcy. More good news. You will have no doubt heard the announcement already made by the Minister of Education that the Gulf Insurance Interprimary Schools Championship, that is well and truly on this year. And that has been slated to take place, let me see if I have the date on this flyer. No, they haven't given me the date, but it will be in April. And this flyer is telling me that it's all about the ticket sales. Tickets can be purchased from all primary schools as of 29th March to 7th April. Children, you're paying $5, primary and secondary students, $5 early bird, $10 regular. I'm not sure what that means. But if you're early bird, you get $5 and regular $10. Adults, including sixth form students, they're being put in the adult category, $15 early bird, $20 regular. Ah, I now see it. Early bird prices end on 22nd April. Tickets can also be purchased from the Department of Education until 26th April. Inside parking, if you want to park inside the facility, you will pay $15 plus the cost of the ticket for each occupant in your vehicle. And that's available from 11th April. So the Gulf, 27th of April is the actual event. Thank you. So 27th of April is going to be a big day when the Mini Olympics returns to the Mondo Track facility, and tickets will go on sale from the 29th of March, so they're already on sale. And they have some early bird specials, and it looks like some late bird specials as well. So that is the suggestion. Ladies and gentlemen, I said I would not be too long, so I will go to the final aspect on my list, and this has to do with the vexed question of citizenship by investment and the revenue that it has generated for the country, St. Kitts and Nevis, over the past many years. It has been a perennial issue here on the island of Nevis that the people of Nevis have been largely locked out of the proceeds of citizenship by investment. Bear in mind, if you will, that citizenship by investment presents a stream of income for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, which does not come necessarily from any local economic activity. It's a stream of income that comes from the very innovative idea, one that I support very strongly, of leveraging our citizenship for investment. And that program has been perhaps one of the most successful programs in the world. It is the platinum standard, and it has the oldest program. In fact, I like to say that St. Kitts and Nevis gave the world the idea of citizenship by investment. Significant sums of money have flowed into the country over the past several years. And it has been a perennial concern on the island of Nevis that Nevis has not and the pace at which St. Kitts has moved, compared sometimes to the pace that we have moved here on Nevis, we see the direct benefit of citizenship by investment. When over the years we've heard about surplus after surplus after surplus on the island of St. Kitts, it is a direct consequence of the flows of citizenship by investment. It is not that TDC and Hospers and Rams and Value Mart are performing so much better that is generating these surpluses. The surpluses are coming from citizenship by investment. We have expressed that concern to the point where in the political season leading up to the 2015 federal elections, this was a principal basis on which the party that I lead, the Concerned Citizens Movement, rallied behind the idea of team unity, because we saw that under the previous arrangement, the Labour NRP administration, the island of Nevis got nothing. Or as I like to say, when we did get something, it was labeled a loan. And so this was a matter of grave concern to us and to the island of Nevis and to the people of Nevis. In fact, so grave a concern it was that no less a man than King Bingi memorialized for all time this concern in Kaiso when he reminded us all that we need our SIDF money. The SIDF at the time being the principal organ through which citizenship by investment was administered. We got into office, but before we did, I was asked to draft a document called the Charleston Accord. And that document was signed by the principal actors for the PLP, Dr. Timothy Sylvester Harris, for the PAM, Sean Kenneth Richards, and for the CCM, the then leader, Vance Winkworth Amory. It was not a secret document. It was signed on the courthouse steps in Charlestown before a massive crowd. As I like to say, before God and man, somewhere in December, I believe 14th, if memory serves, 2014. Signed, documented. And the Charleston Accord did not speak to revenue that comes to St. Kitts and Nevis. The Charleston Accord spoke to the political issue that was current at the time. And that issue was CBI proceeds. In fact, the Charleston Accord was very specific. It mentioned CBI revenue, CBI proceeds, not general revenue, not tax revenue. Because as I pointed out, the CBI revenue comes from its own stream. It doesn't depend on how much RAM sells or TDC sells. It comes from its own stream by activities in the international marketplace. And so, to address the specific problem of Nevis being locked out and the specific concern that we had under the years when we had a Douglas-led Labour NRP administration at the federal level, we came up with a formula. And what did that say? That said simply that if our people were to elect a team unity government, that we would henceforth share the Nevis. Sounds elegant, but all it means is that we will get a percentage based on the population of the two islands. Based on the last census available to us, which I believe was done in 2010, that should shake out at about 25% to Nevis and 75% to St. Kitts. Simple mathematics. St. Kitts gets 3/4, Nevis gets 1/4. I would have thought it was simple mathematics. We went on. Our people voted in overwhelming numbers, and team unity was elected. Dr. Harris, as agreed in the Charleston Accord, became the Prime Minister, and the others of us took up various positions. I became Minister of Foreign Affairs, which I continue to lead that ministry. Team unity promised that it would ameliorate this particular situation. The reason for the Charleston Accord was to document for posterity the agreements between the parties, the leaders, and the commitments made to the people of Nevis and the wider federation. And so one would expect that with what that commitment made, not in the dead of night somewhere, not in somebody's mind, but expressed in writing, signed by men of goodwill, leaders of the political parties that form team unity, that this is the way we would go, that we ought not in 2022 to be talking about share. and fair share, and what is fair from what is not. And I have seen the island of Nevis and those who are contending for political power and position here on the island say various things. But I would want to make an appeal today from this rostrum that there are some issues which are not local political issues. They are not issues which are CCM and NRP issues. Because the record will show that when the Nevis Reformation Party was part of the federal government and part of the Labour-led coalition government, that Nevis got nothing. And when we did get something, it was labeled a loan. And so it doesn't depend or matter who sits in government at the Nevis Island administration level. This is a problem that all Nevisians should want resolved. And I go further and say it is a problem that all right-thinking and fair-minded Kittians should want resolved. Because it couldn't be right that these issues continue to bedevil our federation after all these years. The issues, my friends, are well known. They're not secret. And so, for me, it is really a matter of people of goodwill keeping their commitments and their promises to each other and to the people of our beloved island and federation. And so we look at the numbers. And I want to say here very clearly today that I have been very concerned that those who are the keepers of the numbers, those who have the numbers at their fingertips, continue time after time and speech after speech and statement after statement to say to the people of the country, look how much Nevis is getting. You're members of the press, you have archives, you have all kinds of research tools available to you. And I challenge any of you to tell us, has it ever been said how much money the program has brought in? Never. Nevis get 300 million. Nevis get 400 million. And the people jump up like carnival come. And I ask the question, and I continue to ask the question, and this is where the press is necessary. Because the press must also ask the question, well, if Nevis get 400 million, how much you get? Because you cannot assess fair or equitable unless you know. So all the headlines I keep seeing, Nevis get 300 million. That is the only headline, but that is only a part of the story. If you have a pie that is to be shared between you and your brother, it cannot be the full story to say your brother get a slice. Well, how big the pie is? What size slice the other person get? And where's the press in all this? Because you all have allowed this type of narrative to take hold without questioning it. And so I had to take on the responsibility because I said, well, if we're not being told, then let me put a team together to try and find out. And we've had a team working on this now, and it has taken some time because we had to ferret out information, look at various financial reports from the SIDF, look at budgets, try to put information together. And the team has now provided me with some information. And so bear with me. I'm going to go back as far as 2007, because that's when the SIDF started. 2007, the SIDF had in $19.2 million. 2008, that amount, wait, let me give it to you in a different way. Forgive me. 2007, the receipts, revenue, from the SIDF, CBI, was $19.2 million. That came into Bastia. Nevis got zero. 2008, the amount coming in from CBI was $48.5 million. That came into Bastia. Nevis got zero. 2009, the amount from CBI was $67.1 million. That came into Bastille. Nevis got zero. 2010, the amount was $195.8 million that came in from CBI. That came into Bastille. Nevis got zero. 2011, $321.7 million came into Bastille from CBI. Nevis got a loan of $3 million to do NEPAC. 2012, some $475.5 million came into Bastille from CBI. Nevis got $12,263,038, and in that were two loans, one for the airport lands mortgaged by the NRP to the SIDF to cover a loan of $4 million, and another loan of $6 million to do infrastructure in Nevis. The one for the airport was at 6%, the one for the infrastructure was at 5%. I want you all to listen carefully. 2013, the SIDF, the CBI brought in $607.6 million. Nevis got $4.7 million. 2015, CBI brought in $503.3 million. Nevis got $20 million. 2016, these are now, ladies and gentlemen, the unity years. So the years before were the Labour NRP years. These are now the unity years. 2016, $300.1 million. Nevis got $64.3 million. 2017, $269.4 million. Nevis got $68.5 million. 2018, $417.7 million. $1 million. And 2021, $588 million. Nevis got $54 million. Let me then move to some totals. From 2007 until 2021, representing $15 years of CBI receipts, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis got into Bastille $5,145,702,943. $5,145,702,943. Of that, the island of Nevis received $371,989,817. Our sister St. Kitts received $4,773,713,126. Over that period then, from 2007 until 2021, the island of Nevis received 7.2% of CBI receipts. With a population of 25% of the country, we received 7.2% of CBI receipts. And as I indicated, those amounts from the SIDF prior to 2015 were labeled loans. I want to be very clear, and for members of the press to be very clear in terms of what I'm saying. I have said And I realize that somebody has gone through great pains to pull out every clip that I've ever made when I've said that this has been the best relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis under Team Unity in terms of what we have got. But based on the numbers I've just given you, you could understand why I would say that. Because the most money that we ever got from CBI in Nevis prior to Team Unity was in the year 2012, when of $475.5 million, Nevis got 12. And in that 12 was a loan of $6 million at 5%, and another loan of $4 million at 6%. And the Nevis Reformation Party at the time, in coalition with Labour at the federal level, mortgaged the Vance Amry International Airport to cover the $4 million loan. Mortgaged the Vance Amry International Airport to cover the $4 million loan. If that is not shameful, then I don't know what is. Our money. Our money. So when I hear people with the language about some support is being provided to Nevis, it sounds almost like St. Kitts is the Red Cross. And this is benevolence. We are assisting Nevis. We are giving support to Nevis. It is budgetary support. My brothers and sisters, it is our money. And it must prick the conscience of every right-thinking member in this country. That from the sale and negotiation of our passport, Nevis had to borrow. Borrow. And our airport was mortgaged to cover. Cannot be right. And when we stand up and we talk about these things, people say that somehow you're wrong to point out these things. This is not any attack on the people of St. Kitts. This is saying that the institutions that we have sought to put in place to serve our people have failed the people of Nevis. And as the leader of this island of Nevis, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you it is all good when it is not all good. Are things better under Team Unity for Nevis? Absolutely. Because we moved from nothing to something. But we have not got what was committed. We have not got what was promised. And I am done with the private discussions, the negotiations, the talks, the palliatives, the take it easy. Let me give you a little bit more for now. Hold that, and we're going to work out the rest. No. People in finance in Nevis went to university too, and they're very good at counting money. Send the money. Give us our share. What could be so controversial about that? Tell me. I have been subjected to some, what I could only, and this perhaps is on Premier-like language, only describe as foolish arguments. Why Nevis not going to look for its own revenue stream? And what the Premier Nevis doing to create revenue in Nevis? Why he don't go to sort out himself over there and stop watch CBI money? Well, I must watch it because it's my money. Who don't want to watch it, that is their business. But I will watch it because it's my money. The passport says St. Kitts and Nevis. And as I pointed out repeatedly, when bad comes, all of us suffer. Canada, for example, when they imposed a visa requirement, they didn't say, oh, if you're from Gingerland, you could still come visa-free. But if you're from Cairn, you got to get a visa. No. Canada said, Tut Mun Saman Bagay. Whoever have a passport says St. Kitts Nevis must get a visa. So if we must suffer equally with our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts, when bad comes, Well, how come we ought not to benefit when good comes? These are simple, simple matters which ought not to lead to any controversy. And I'm taking some time here today because I'm tired of those who seek to propel a false narrative that Nevis is getting all of this money and all of this help. What Nevis a make noise for? And unfortunately, some of us on Nevis seem to have fallen prey to that type of narrative. Instead of standing up and demanding that fair is fair and right is right, they too start to say, oh, you never used to get nothing, now you get something, hush your mouth. Well, I'm not that kind of leader. And I'm not that kind of representative. And I believe that when people elect people, they elect them to bring better for them, to represent them. So let us go back to the numbers. Over the period 2007 to 2021, Nevis has got 7.2% of CBI proceeds. And the majority of that has come during the Unity years. But has Unity itself delivered what was promised? Remember, under Unity, we're supposed to get 25%. So when we look at the Unity years now, forget about the Douglas NRP years. Let us look at the Unity years. From 2015 until 2021, we have got $2.79 billion in CBI receipts coming in to Bastille. 2.79 billion. And of that, the island of Nevis has received 321 million. St. Kitts, our sister, has kept $2.47 billion under Unity, our best years. 2.47 billion St. Kitts has kept, and Nevis has got $321 million. On the math, it means that under Team Unity, Nevis has got about 12% of the CBI proceeds. Now, I want you to consider with me that even if you were to exclude, well, let me not put it that way. If you were to include a fair share from 2007, Nevis should have got 25% or thereabouts of $5 billion. $5.1 billion. That was the total. And that really should have given us, on the island of Nevis, somewhere, what is 25% of $5 billion? I see my press members here just as bad as math as I am. But 25% of $5 billion seems to me to be somewhere more than $1 billion. Right? 5 divided by 4. Right? More than $1 billion. It's 1.25. So $1.25 billion is what Nevis should have got over the period of those 15 years. Instead of that, the island of Nevis got $371 million. You see, sometimes when you break things down like that, people start to understand what we're really talking about. From 2017 to 2007, forgive me, until 2021, $5.1 billion came into Bastille from CBI. If we had applied the formula of 25%, Nevis would have got $1.2 billion. Instead, Nevis got $371 million. You see how much money we leave on the table? Nearly $1 billion. Nearly $1 billion. If you say, well, things were not good under Labour NRP, so let us exclude those years. And we move to the best years. I'm still sticking with my language. The best years under Unity. From 2015 until now. $2.79 billion. This might be a little harder, but if we Nevis had got it 25%, how much that would have been? 1/4 of that. About $700 million. That's what Nevis should have got. under unity. Instead, Nevis got 321 million. We still have nearly 400 million out the door. Y'all understand Nevis language, isn't it? Nearly 400 out the door. If we had stayed with the formula and the commitment made in the Charleston Accord. And so, some are saying these matters should be matters for diplomacy and discussion, and that is right. But this is part of diplomacy and discussion too. Some diplomacy is private and some is public. And I have grown tired of the rhetoric that seeks to constantly tell the world that Nevis get all of this money. And many of us have fallen prey to that rhetoric and we run with it. Bah, you ain't hear how much money Nevis getting. Sound like a lot of money for you. But when you hear $371 million to Nevis in the last 15 years, what am I bawl for? What am I make noise for? I want the members of the press to join me in asking the question, well, what about the rest? Because I had to put a team together to ferret out this information. It's not easy to find, you know. You got to go through all kind of audited statements and financials. It took them a few weeks. And those who are the keepers of this information could come very easily and say this is the information. Now these obviously are gross figures. And some may make the argument, quite validly, well, the fund has expenses, you got to take out those. And I understand that. But I'm using the gross figures because that is what is available to us. Because again, nobody's being told what the expenses are. So if the response were to come, well, there are expenses, that is okay, take out the expenses. So perhaps the 5.1 billion in revenue may come down to 4.5 billion in net revenue. We don't know because nobody's telling us. But whatever the number is, the people of Nevis, on their population basis, would have gotten 45%. And I want the people of Nevis to listen to me carefully. Stop being satisfied. Stop being satisfied with crumbs. Stand up and say, listen, you can count money too. You got road to build too. You got hospital and airport to build too. You got port to build. You got programs to run. I hear the argument now being said, oh, Sanctions is paying for the step workers in Nevis. Sanctions is paying for PAP in Nevis. But Nevis never asked Sanctions to pay for a thing in Nevis, you know. We said, give us our money and let us pay for what we want to pay for. That's simple. You know, when we had the pandemic, we were trying to assist persons in need, especially persons who needed food. And the practice at the time was that we would go to the supermarket, buy sardine and crackers and all kind of thing, put them in a bag, milk and thing. And I took a bag to a gentleman. And the gentleman tell me, Mr. Brantley, thank you very much, but I don't eat them choppies there, you know? I don't eat them thing there. So I said, well, what you say? He said, no, you can't decide for me what I should eat. You know, people here may be poor, but that don't mean that they don't have their pride. He said, if you're going to help, give me a voucher. Let me go in the supermarket and buy what I want to buy. Because instead of crackers and sardine and bully beef, I might go and buy some broccoli and some tomatoes because that's what I eat. And after that, the CCM changed its approach, and what we did instead was vouchers. Redeemable at the supermarkets, because we say we're not supposed to shop for people. The man was right. So how Sanctions want to shop for Nevis? Give me my money. Give Nevis its money. And let me not say my, because some people are saying I'm greedy. So it's not me. Let me take myself out of the equation. Give Nevis its money. And I will be standing, not here, but elsewhere, saying the same thing if there was a different government in Nevis. It is not about NRP and CCM. It is about what is right. And it is high time that all of us start to say, listen, this is right and this is wrong. Simple. Whilst you are here in Nevis and your government is forced to borrow to make ends meet and to pay public servants, you're forced to borrow to do almost everything on this island. You budget each year and you're on a knife's edge to determine how things are going to work out by the end of the year. Your debt keeps growing. We've been able to control the growth, but nevertheless, it keeps growing. And just 2 miles away, you hear surplus, 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 surplus. Cash in the bank, cash in the bank, cash in the bank. Land for debt redeemed. Why you all think buying all of that and paying for all of that? You think there's some genius sitting down in St. Kitts who's a financial guru? No. The only thing that is happening is that the inflows from CBI. The inflows from CBI. And that is really what is fueling the growth, fueling the development. And you look across the landscape in terms of projects and what has been happening. And you say, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's important that we have this discussion. Now suddenly, I am hearing that the only document you must look to about sharing is the Constitution. And Section 1110 speaks to how money between St. Kitts and Nevis should be shared. But I ask you to help me ask the question, when was the Constitution passed and came into being? And I will answer that one, 19th of September, 1983. It therefore follows logically that when the Charleston Accord was signed in December of 2014, that each of those honorable gentlemen signing the Charleston Accord must have known what the Constitution said. They must have known that the Constitution had then been in existence since 1983. And they must also know that the Constitution speaks to revenue, meaning tax and related revenue that comes into the country. They signed the accord which spoke specifically to CBI, citizenship by investment, because that was the problem we were trying to solve. We weren't trying to solve the problem of general revenue in the country. Everybody knew what Section 1110 said. We had a specific problem. And we committed to you that we would solve that specific problem by coming up with a formula that these honorable gentlemen signed to. And ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case on that. I have said, and I will say so now, because I'm going to keep coming back to it, that this issue of revenue, if they want to widen the discussion, it's a discussion that I will welcome. Because it means when you start to talk about revenue, you're going to have to start to talk about all the companies that do business in St. Kitts and Nevis, but because of the single VAT filing system, they file all the VAT in St. Kitts. We're going to have to talk about the companies that do business in St. Kitts and Nevis, but because of the corporate tax structure, they pay all the corporate taxes in St. Kitts. And we're going to start to name them. And we're going to start to name the amounts that are involved. So that the people of Nevis will start to get a picture of the extent of leakage from the Nevis economy and the Nevis coffers that is happening. I am not getting into that because we have a discrete issue of citizenship by investment. But I'm sure that some of you might be surprised to know that you go to some places of business here in Nevis and you do your business, and because they are headquartered in Bastia, that all the VAT is paid over there. You might be surprised to know that entities that you do business with here in Nevis that are profitable, that when they pay the corporate tax, all the corporate tax is paid over there. Nobody is calling and say, The Minister of Finance in Nevis, boy, we collect 10 million in corporate tax from National Bank, and we know National Bank has operations over in Nevis, and so 2 million out of this should really come to you. No, nobody's saying that. All you're hearing is how much support is being given to Nevis. And all of you over here ungrateful, because you should jump up and applaud that you're getting a part of what you are entitled to. And if I alone am going to stand up, I'm going to stand up. And I say so because I mean it. I did so in opposition, and the people have sent me into government to stand up for them, and I will do so. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions for me, I will take them now and see to do my best to answer them as best as I can.
Good morning. Monique Washington, St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper. Mr. Premier, I just have two questions for now. After almost 7 years with Team Unity, why did it take you so long to come out about the issues as it relates to the fair share? And what discussions were had between you and the other members of Team Unity during the last election about this whole fair share issue? And what happens next as it relates to it? Because you said you wrote privately, you're now speaking publicly, and you still have gotten nothing. So what happens next? And with the increase in gas prices and the overall increase of basically everything, is there any relief on the table for citizens? And that's it for right now.
Thank you very much. You said two questions, you asked me about 10. But since I asked the question about the percentage, I realized members of the press, math is not the strong point, so I will forgive you for the number of questions that you asked while saying you only asked two. Why now? I think that's a valid question, Monique. And I can only answer you this way, that there are many, including myself, who gave our all to Team Unity, that we fought valiantly for Team Unity, that we put together, in my view, the best political idea that this country has had in its modern history. Disparate parties coming together, St. Kitts and Nevis coming together, working for the benefit of all of our people. And when you have given your all to something in that way, when you believe in it fervently, you want it to work. And you fight for it to work. And so it might have taken 7 years, but I believe that the platitudes and the approach that has been taken, the lack of genuine effort to solve some of these easily solved problems, that the time has come. Some may say it should have come earlier. Some may say, even now, I'm being accused, why are you doing this? You must talk privately. But to me, sometimes the private talk benefits those who want to keep the talks private. Meaning that you as a member of the press or public have no idea what is going on. You have no idea the difficulties that are being experienced. And sometimes, some of us, sometimes you're in a marriage and you want your marriage to work. You love your husband bad. And so you keep working. You keep trying. You tell him you don't like something, and he said, well, he's going to try and change. And he changed for a little while, and then he started with something again, and you work at it. And then somebody said, why are you staying there for 7 years? And you say, because you were committed to the relationship. And I am persuaded that those involved in Team Unity are honorable people. And if they're honorable people, what do honorable people do? Honorable people keep their bargains and keep their commitments. And so that has been my passion. And that is really what has delayed this sort of public speaking to the issues such as this one. I have, for example, Monique, been very surprised to hear people now say publicly that Charleston Accord really doesn't matter. It's a piece of paper. And I have said, and I say it right here now in my press conference, but that same piece of paper made Timothy Harris the Prime Minister. You can't get the benefit. And then once you've got the benefit, you start to say, this doesn't matter. because that was the bargain that was made. When people ask, well, how is it this was done? It was done because that was what was agreed. So how come now that you agreed and certain benefits flow from that agreement? But when the time comes for the people of Nevis to get what was agreed, you say, oh, Constitution 1110, and this not easy, this must be looked at. We need studies, and we need the World Bank and the IMF and the CDB, and everybody must come in and go study. Simple question. Look how we work out the maths here this morning. I ask you and you respond. How much is X percent of 5 billion? That is the amount. Worked out the mathematics. So I am not understanding where all the uncertainty is coming from. Because it is a matter which, if people want to resolve, can be very easily resolved. You ask, what happens next? I'm hopeful that these problems can be solved. That is what happens next. You mentioned the increase in prices, oil prices, gas prices, etc. have been going up, largely due to the regrettable situation where Russia has invaded Ukraine, and that has sent the world into turmoil as we are trying to recover from COVID-19. I have spoken on that before. I do not propose to say anything further on that at the moment. What I will say is that we have been considering, Monique, various measures. There is, for example, in the makeup of the price of gasoline per gallon, there's a dealer margin. So the dealer gets, I think it's fixed at 70 cents for every gallon of gas that is sold. And then there is the government levy, which is $2.25 for every gallon of gas that is sold. And so what we have been saying is that the government ought to do something about that $2.25. And hopefully, by doing something about that, bring some relief. What exactly that something is going to be, we are still working on it. But that is where we're looking at right now. So the government could reduce or maybe forego, or whatever decision is ultimately arrived at. But that $2.25 can provide a bit of a cushion. Because currently, every gallon of gas you buy, there's a tax of $2.25 that goes to the federal government. Let me emphasize that, not the NIA. Goes to the federal government. So even when you buy gas here in Nevis, the $2.25 goes to the federal government, not to the NIA. That's why I'm saying we don't really want no big conversation about tax, because if we get into all of that, it's going to be sticky. Right? So we're looking to see how we can work with that $2.25 to try and provide a little buffer. And this is a matter that I believe it's the Honorable Wendy Phipps on St. Kitts she has been dealing with, and we are hopeful that we'll have something very soon to announce in terms of that. Let me also say that I saw on social media and in the press that the bus drivers in Nevis have put out something saying that they have increased their fares. I believe that was circulating yesterday. I can tell you that as the government, we have not authorized or agreed to any fare increase. The bus drivers would have written to us, the bus association, asking for the permission, if you will, to increase their fares, and we would have responded to say to hold, we would like to look at the matter. I saw some press reports saying that the matter was approved in Nevis. I just want to say that the NIA has not approved any bus increase or any fare increases in Nevis, because we were looking to see how we could work with the federal government to provide this type of buffer that I'm talking about in terms of that tax, whether waive it, put a moratorium on its collection, whatever the case may be. So we thought we could provide some relief that way. But we saw that the bus drivers in Nevis put out something. I don't know if it's official, but I saw things yesterday being circulated, giving the fares, the new fares for various places. So I want to make that very clear, that this is not something that the cabinet in Nevis has approved, because we were looking at other solutions which will not pass on that burden to the traveling public. Are there any other questions for me?
Good morning, Andre Huey, SK Newsline. There's a couple of questions. Obviously, what you've explained in terms of the CBF. By the way, are those figures, from your standpoint, verified in your view, based on the research you would have done? Why has...
You're asking me or you're
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I wouldn't have come if I wasn't satisfied that the figures are verified. We had a team working on it, and these are the numbers. I believe, however, that the numbers might be higher.
Mhm.
But this is what we have been able to find.
So as a follow-up to that, as a member of the coalition, why did you have to actually go through this means to get the figures when Team Unity had promised that there will be more transparency where the program is concerned?
But you're asking the wrong person that question.
Well, you're part of the cabinet, so that's what I
Yes,
asked.
but I'm not the keeper of the figures. And if I have to go through this roundabout way to find the numbers, you understand that that speaks for itself. It means that the figures have not been forthcoming, and that requests for numbers have not been forthcoming. And so one is forced, the only numbers that it seems have been forthcoming is how much Nevis get. Release after release, statement after statement is how much Nevis get. Those are added down to the cent. Very clear. But the other numbers seem to be lost in space. So we had to go to space and try and find them. And that is why I've come this morning to share with the public what those numbers look like. So I understand your question. It is a very legitimate question. But I can only speak to what is.
So in light of that, and
Yes.
the other things, that the other pronouncements that will be made by yourself as well as the leader of the People's Action Movement, the question is simply this. Is Team Unity, as currently constructed, still a viable coalition? Is it still functioning? Because the Deputy Prime Minister has said publicly that he has not even shown up to cabinet meetings for the last 2 months. Is Team Unity still functioning? In your view, is there a path of reconciliation between the CCM PAM and the PLP? Because the PLP seems to be the main instigator here. Can the two parties, the two larger parties in the coalition, make any amends with the People's Labour Party and the Prime Minister to continue the coalition as is? Or is there a path of no return for Team Unity?
It is a difficult question you've asked, but I am not yet quite at the point where I'd like to reach in my own spiritual life, because that is an ongoing journey. But I'm always reminded in the Bible of the chief persecutor of Christians, was a man called Saul. And the Bible tells us that on the road to Damascus, when he was headed to persecute God's people, he had a moment on that road to Damascus and converted and became Paul. And so the chief persecutor became God's chief servant and vessel. And what that tells me is that change is always possible, that there is in all of us the capacity to do better, and that all of us who believe we are now Saul have the capacity to become Paul. And with that, I will therefore say that I never give up. I always feel that there's an opportunity. But to get to that place, all of us will have to humble ourselves, renew our commitment to what we agreed, and renew our commitment to the people of our country, because at the end of the day, it's not about us. You change the figure who's standing at this podium now, the principle should be the same, that we are committed to the people of our country, and that is what we are seeking to do. When we lose sight of that, and it becomes only about personal power, and who has what title, and who has this title and that title, then that is where I think we start to fall apart. And I do not believe that anything I've said today is unreasonable, that the people of Nevis are being greedy, as I'm told we are being labeled in some quarters, for simply saying that this is what we agreed. And we sat down in good faith and agreed to a particular approach to a vexing question, because we were looking for solutions. And if the solution that was proposed and agreed upon is this, pro rata share, based on population of the CBI proceeds, why everybody running from it now? I can't answer that.
How long are you prepared to wait for that?
Well, I'm talking now, and I'm not prepared to wait.
Two things quickly. On the CBI issue, more on an international scale. Of course, you know the EU Parliament is again bringing up this issue of the citizenship by investment for all the countries that have it. So generally speaking, the CBI internationally is under threat. Your response to that as Minister of Foreign Affairs. And lastly, There is, of course, as we all aware, an investigation or a matter currently before the judiciary process regarding the Bank of Nevis International. As Premier of Nevis, can you categorically dispel any notion or any rumor or suggestion or anything that people may bring up to suggest that somehow you or your government is somehow interfering in that regard to protect the principal of that of the bank, or who's at the center of the investigation? To say categorically that your administration or you individually are not involved or interfering with that investigation is concerned.
Okay, let me start where you ended about the Bank of Nevis International. I'm a little surprised at the question because I believe that my government has had an impeccable record of adherence to the rule of law and respect for the rule of law. I am not going to get into too much detail because, as you say, the matter is before the court and the court will have to resolve that. What I will tell you is that there will be no interference by me or my government in any judicial proceedings that have started, that are contemplated, or that might happen in relation to the Bank of Nevis International, its principals, or anyone else for that matter. I don't do that. I have had family members of mine who have run themselves into difficulties with the law. And my advice to them, get a good lawyer. Because my office will not be calling to interfere. I don't do that. And I will not do that. So if there are issues surrounding the Bank of Nevis International or its principals, those issues must be ventilated in the court in the ordinary course. And I want to make that pellucid. That my government will in no way, shape, or form interfere with the judicial process and with the justice system. It's a very slippery slope. And if you interfere, it can only end badly for our country. So, I want to be clear on that. Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the EU Parliament and CBI, the EU Parliament has in fact made a recommendation, yes, dealing specifically with citizenship by investment programs within the EU. They have gone further to say that does not mean that it will not turn attention to third-party countries in the future. But I think that their pronouncement was more specific to their own members that have CBI programs. And they have members like Malta, Portugal, etc. with such programs. The Parliament, however, has only made a recommendation, and it is for the European Council, the Council, to determine what actions are taken. We have not yet had any form of communication from the EU on this matter. I believe what has happened is, in response to the EU Parliament recommendation, Prime Minister Gaston Brown of Antigua and Barbuda would have made some public statements. And I then saw some headlines suggesting that programs are under threat, under attack from the EU. Just yesterday, I would have engaged the ambassador from Romania on this matter. And tomorrow morning at 11:45, I engage with the ambassador from the European Union to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. We have a phone call at 11:45 tomorrow, God willing, where this matter will be discussed again. And so we are engaged. I also realize that the Honorable Prime Minister has made a statement on this matter, speaking to the robust nature of the due diligence and security of the Sanctions Nevis program, and therefore seeking to assure our partners in the EU that we are a serious country which takes our commitments seriously, and we are a serious partner in the international community. So it is a matter which we are monitoring, one in which we are engaged, but I don't think at this stage there's any need for us to panic. It really calls for dialogue and sensible engagement. Any other questions for me?
Good day, Mr. Premier.
Yes.
Shamika Bajan, Vaughan Radio. Still on the CBI matter. If Nevis doesn't get its fair share as was previously outlined? If there's no change, what measures will be taken or can be taken to rectify this matter? You said just a few minutes ago that you won't wait. So will you have a deadline? Also, the Federation has received notice of the increase of gas prices. Can we see an increase in electricity bills due to this increase? And also, as we are all aware that there is an influx of vehicles imported on the island, currently there are difficulties in finding parking spaces in Charlestown. Are there any plans to build additional parking lots in and around Charlestown for persons who are working or persons who would be coming in town just to do business? And that's it for me for now. Thank you.
You asked me some very good questions. Let me deal with the question of CBI. You say, what happens if Nevis doesn't get its fair share? I think that there are various responses which are open to the island of Nevis. There are political responses which are open. When we weren't getting our fair share prior to 2015, we went out and we had a political solution to that problem. We changed the government. So that is a political solution if we get to that stage. It's always a political solution to seek to have the persons in a government that are responsive to the needs not only of some but of all the people of the country. There's also the consideration of legal possibilities to really put this whole issue of revenue sharing before the court. And the court does provide an opportunity to review that as well. There's also dialogue and discussions. And I go back to my Saul moment on the road to Damascus. And I always keep hope alive that we can resolve some of these issues if people are genuinely interested in coming to some resolution. So saying what we are going to do depends in large measure on the responses that we get from the other partners in unity. I am heartened that the leader of the People's Action Movement, the Honorable Sean Richards, has made a public statement saying that this matter needs to be addressed and that he supports the view of the Nevis Island administration that we have not delivered on this to the people of Nevis. And so if he's saying that, he represents 4 members of Team Unity. I'm saying it, I represent 3 members of Team Unity. That means 7 of 9 are saying it. I don't know what Dr. Douglas and Dr. Hanley are saying. They are on the opposition benches. I don't know what Dr. Harris and Akila Nisbet are saying. They're the other 2 in Team Unity. But I can say that 7 members of Team Unity at this point appear to be saying that this issue is long past due for resolution and that it has to be resolved. And so I'm optimistic that we will be able to resolve that issue. But there are political options, legal options, and always, of course, my preferred option, which is dialogue. Increase in gas prices, you're right. And I think that, yes, I will not shy away from it. If gas prices start to increase, we must look at increased electricity because we have the fuel surcharge where we pass on the increases to our people. And so we continue to encourage our people to conserve as much as they can and to look at what is happening globally and seek to control how much they consume in terms of electricity. So some people leave on the lights all night, they leave on the AC running, things like that, that they try their best to control that. We, from the government's point of view, have been using an average. I believe we're doing a 6-month average rather than each time we get a fuel shipment, we pass on the full cost. And by doing the 6-month average, we've been trying to buffer the impact. But increased prices, gas prices, oil prices generally lead to increase in electricity and transportation costs, etc. Insofar as the parking is concerned, you're right. Everybody now is bringing in vehicles. The young people especially, they want their own, they want something to drive. And some homes have several vehicles. The question that I would ask, or I would respond to your question by asking one of my own. Is the problem the lack of parking, or is the problem too many vehicles? Because if we continue at the rate at which we're going now, the whole of Charleston and maybe half of it will have to become a parking lot. It is every single month. The numbers are telling us that hundreds of vehicles are coming in every month. And I'm not sure how we keep up with that by simply providing more parking. What have other countries done faced with a similar problem? You've had some on the far extreme like Bermuda that have restricted the number of vehicles that a family can have. I think it's one per household in Bermuda. That's one extreme. Other extremes, well, not other extreme, but the other end of the spectrum, you have had countries that have tried to encourage persons to carpool, to use public transportation more. And a lot of people, for example, live in New York City. It's very rare for people in New York City to own a vehicle because parking is very expensive. You get penalized almost for owning. And so a lot of people carpool. They take public transportation in order to get around. I am not sure what the solution is. It might be a combination of all of that. But what I do know is that we cannot, as a government, continue simply to build parking lots because more people are buying vehicles. I think our people themselves have to be part of that solution. The last point I'll make is one that we've made here before. There are many lots of land around Charleston which are vacant, owned, but unoccupied at this point. We have encouraged owners of those lands to use them for parking, even for a fee. And we have said that we are prepared as a government to provide whatever partnership and support they need to make that happen. We see one now, I believe, at the Methodist Church. We see one at the top of Chapel Street, is it? That has happened. And we are optimistic that more of that can happen for those who have lots of lands lying vacant around Charleston, who may not yet be ready to do anything with them, that they can make them available for parking as well.
And what about the vacant government buildings that are currently in Charlestown?
I don't have any vacant government buildings that are in Charlestown.
The building that I know that is unoccupied right next to the Inland Revenue Department.
You're talking about a warehouse?
Yes.
Okay. So the old warehouse is there, but I don't know what we're going to do, short of knocking it down and saying that people can now park there. The old warehouse is really something. It's an historic building, first of all. And I don't know what we can do there in terms of parking or making more parking available at that particular site. That is the only site that the government has in town currently that is unoccupied. But we don't think that it is possible to use that site for purposes of parking. That really is prime real estate. And the warehouse aspect of it, that is the bit that is closer to the dock. That certainly is an historic building that clearly we would have to think long and hard and go through some consultations if we were to knock that down. So I go back to what I said earlier. I think the immediate solution could be that those who have vacant lots in town, privately owned, that they make those available, because there's some lots of land in town that really have nothing on them at the moment, no building or anything else. And that we feel that that is a way that persons can earn, but also gives us an opportunity to ameliorate. But we will not, and I want to say that clearly, we will not be able to solve the problem of enough parking if the rate of importation of vehicles continues at which it is going. So that is really the good and the bad, if you will, the yin and the yang of the problem that we will have to deal with. Any more questions for me?
Good morning, Devon Cornelius. FM, just a few questions. What is the status of the negotiations with the developers of the one and only resort? And what is the status on the Alexandria Hospital expansion project? What is your stance on filing a motion or supporting a motion of no confidence against the Prime Minister. And if PAM and CCM were to perhaps form the next federal government, how guaranteed are we that Nevis will receive its fair share and other commitments made in the Charleston Accord? And lastly, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, what happens if we were to lose the CBI, and what is happening at the federal and local level to ensure that if we lose this program, we have something else to look to? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there somebody has on something that's playing? Yeah. All right. Thank you for your question, Mr. Cornelius. One and only resort, the negotiations continue there. I confess I don't have an immediate update for you. I saw an email, I believe was sent this morning, PS, or yesterday, where the developer is seeking to, how should I put it, to find an alternative form of financing through an alternative financier. And that has been put forward for consideration. We'll have to look at that to determine if that's the direction in which we want to go. The Alexandria Hospital, the work up there is continuing. We now have all of the plans that for the internal reconfiguration that I've spoken about. And as far as I know, the contractors are on site and continuing with that construction there. We have ordered the windows for the building, and we expect that those will be here in short order and to be installed. And of course, I have said that we're looking for substantial completion of the building by the end of this year. So that project is ongoing. Motion of no confidence, PAM, CCM, I think those are political matters that the political parties will have to discuss and come to a determination as to what the best approach is going to be. I will tell you that as far as the CCM is concerned, whatever the configuration of any government that we are part of, we will insist that Nevis gets what belongs to Nevis. And we will not resile from that. So whether it's PAM, whether it's PLP, whoever it may be, that for us, the position of the island of Nevis is non-negotiable. We must be able to get, and if it takes us continuing to try, we will do that. I said publicly, and I continue to maintain, that Team Unity represented the last best chance. Some say if you can't live in peace, you must live in pieces. I prefer to live in peace. And so for us, it is important that we get this right and we keep our promises and keep our commitments. The last question you asked has to do with Ministry of Foreign Affairs and CBI. What happens next? I believe that Nevis is already trying to diversify its local economy. We never had CBI in terms of something that we could rely on. So we have been forced to be more self-reliant in that sense. So that's why we have pivoted hard to agriculture, as I've said, and food security. We're looking at the movie business and trying to grow that. We are, in fact, incidentally, we have just wrapped up the filming of the 5th film on Nevis called Us or Them. I'm quite proud of that and using larger Nevision crew now who are being asked and called upon to step up. So I'm very pleased to see that we are and continue to try to diversify. We are currently seeing the Apsaris project at Potworks, which is proceeding apace, and that is intended to be a campus of sorts where we are trying to attract small and medium-sized businesses from other countries, predominantly Hong Kong, to relocate their operations here. And that whole complex is designed to house them as they come here. That's why we're referring to it as a science and technology and business park, because that again is an innovation that we've introduced to try and diversify our local economy here. I have heard some chatter about this particular project. I'm not sure why. The lands there were sold, I believe it was 2014, to citizens, because they are citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. They have bought those lands and they are now transforming those lands into a project that we feel can add value to Nevis if we can attract these small and medium-sized businesses to relocate here and provide a campus on which they can be situate. So that really is the thinking behind the Apsaris project. We continue, of course, to try our very best in relation to these various development projects. We are very excited that we are told by the developers that the marina, the Nautilus project there at Tamarind Cove, that is going to restart very shortly. That financing is in place, and that is expected to be a go. That too will give us another string to our bow insofar as our tourism is concerned. And we continue to work with the Nisbet Plantation and to seek to finalize that arrangement so that that can be renovated, upgraded, and reopened in the shortest possible time. So we here on the island of Nevis have really been forced to. We can't sit down and simply wait on CBI money. So we have been forced to try and innovate and do some new and different things, and we will continue to try and do that. At the national level, you're right. We have to find new and creative ways to grow our economy, and we have to look beyond CBI and see CBI as a part of the economy, but not the economy exclusively. And we must now seek to attract investment that is not necessarily connected to CBI and see how we can, at least CBI will continue to be important to us, as indeed tourism in Nevis is going to continue to be important, but we must find ways to diversify around that and add additional strings to our bow as we try to develop and diversify our economy. Any other questions for me?
We see some American companies and other companies that have persons and subsidiaries based in the Russian area that are pulling their people out and looking for places to relocate them to work, and most of these are like tech companies. Would Nevis be open to accepting large numbers of persons from these areas to come here to set up base to work? Second question, have you resumed taking your salary after foregoing like 100% of it for almost 2 years now? And if so, why now? And the Prime Minister would have made an announcement that the Cabinet is looking into paying an increase to civil servants, to public servants. What is the NIA's position on that?
Thank you very much, Ms. Hewlett. U.S. companies relocating subsidiaries, the short answer is yes. This is part of what we're seeking to do with the Apsaros project, and certainly we'll be very open to entities relocating here. We have, for example, the former call center in Brownhill, which has the capacity to accommodate almost 400 persons with the workstations and all that's still in place. They may now be a little outdated, but the infrastructure is still there. So the truth is, yes, we are very willing to talk to companies and individuals who are prepared to come, and that really was the thinking, although the Apsaros project had nothing to do with the Ukrainian situation, which is recent. This was a plan that we had to try and attract primarily Hong Kong businesses to relocate and come here. Have I started taking my salary? The answer is yes. I have started taking my salary again as Premier of Nevis as of December of last year, 2021. And the reason was that I did indicate that I would forego my salary as Premier until such time as we felt that we were past the pandemic. I still think that the pandemic is here, but I believe the worst of it is no longer with us. And so I would have foregone my salary from April of 2020 until December of 2021. So that was a period of time, almost 2 years, that I would not have had a salary. In relation to the Prime Minister's announcement, this matter of salary increases for public servants has really been before the Cabinet now for some time. I believe what we have been waiting on is a final report from the Ministry of Finance in St. Kitts as to the cost and what is the final costing is going to be. I can tell you that all the members of Cabinet are committed to our public servants receiving increases in salary. We think that it is time to have a look at this, because the last time that there was any increase, I believe, was somewhere around 2014. So we are definitely committed to this. I believe that the work on it is not yet completed, but the members of the Cabinet have long signaled their support of an initiative to increase the salaries of our public servants. So this is not something new. This is something that has been ongoing for some time. And so long as we can get the final numbers from the Ministry of Finance, I believe that this is something that should happen in the near term. Incidentally, as we talked about our civil servants, let me announce that yesterday in the Cabinet, here on the island of Nevis, that we took a decision that we will end the freeze on increments and promotions on the island of Nevis. I believe that the public would be aware that when we gave the budget address in December of 2021, for 2022, we indicated we would continue the freeze on increments and promotions until the first quarter of 2022. Well, the first quarter has now come to an end, and as of April 1st, persons will once again in the public service be able to get their increments, be able to get their promotions, as the case may be. And I would want to thank the hard-working civil servants, public servants in Nevis who have really persevered and who have shared the burden of the difficulties that we all have experienced in relation to COVID. And so I'm hoping that that too can be said. I ought to have said so in my opening, and I apologize for that, that our public servants will now resume as usual in terms of their salary increases, increments, and promotions. Any other questions for me?
Hi, good morning all. I'm here representing BHC Media, and you can find us on Facebook and YouTube. Mr. Brantley, as a mean of settling the nagging fair share dispute so that Nevis can get its prescribed allotted fair share of the CBI, are you willing to A, forego all receipts of monies from syndicats, such as monies for PAP, STEP, Peace, as you indicated already, and B, sit with the Prime Minister and have some independent form of mediation to determine how the fair share should be derived in order to fix this perennial problem, and C, allow syndicats to make its own decisions and handle its own affairs, just as Nevis is to be independent to handle its own finances. Question number 2. The Prime Minister said that since 2015, your government received over $400 million. However, on Nevis, there is still a lack of opportunities and innovation. The unemployment rate among young people is well over 20%, and there are still several multi-million-dollar incomplete projects on island. Question is, what exactly did you do with the over $400 million? Question number 3. Clause 110 in the SKN Constitution speaks to revenue sharing and how the process is to be handled. Question is Nevis paying its fair share of federal taxes that are used for managing federal programs? And if Nevis is paying its fair share, can you let us know the monthly amount? Question number 4. After spending 7 years in the federal government, all of a sudden, you are now bringing CBI figures on the eve of a Nevis local election. Question is all this a campaign strategy? Are you now campaigning against the Prime Minister and syndicats for the upcoming Nevis election? Question number 5. You are asking for fair share for the people of Nevis, but you have been in government in Nevis for almost 10 years now, presiding over rampant political discrimination, lack of opportunities, and high-paying jobs and contracts which are only allotted to strong party supporters. Question is, do you think during your 10 years in government on the island of Nevis, you have provided a fair share to all the people of Nevis? Thank you.
Mr. Hanley, thank you very much. Your questions are always provocative, although not based in fact, and so always difficult to respond to. For example, taking your last question, have we provided a fair share to all of Nevis? I think the answer to that is a resounding yes. You say we've provided contracts and allotted jobs and high-paying jobs to only party supporters. That is patently false. Patently false. In fact, I remember a candidate for the NRP, your predecessor. I believe he works for the government. Perhaps you have forgotten. Hired by us after he ran against us. And I'm sure if you have the necessary skill set that we need, we'll hire you too. Because we have been a government that is inclusive. You know the irony that you would make this kind of assertion? Completely fictional. But you would make it anyway. When the truth is that there are CCM supporters who call me every day and say they're not comfortable because they can't get through with this and can't get through with that because so much NRP people in position. But yet you would come and suggest to us that only CCM people. And that is inaccurate. Look across the landscape of the island. Look at people who are engaged in development. Look at people who are engaged in jobs for government or even in the private sector. We have not ever used politics as a yardstick for determining whether somebody gets concessions, whether somebody gets access. Never. We have been very open and very fair. I think I am very proud of the record that this government has had. So, short answer is yes. We have indeed provided Nevisians with a fair share. And those who call Nevisians home, call Nevis home, I'm sorry. Because we have not restricted our approach to government to just people who have a Sinkis Nevis passport. We have tried to help everybody. Whatever programs we've run, we've tried to help everyone. We didn't ask somebody, for example, before they went on PAP or something, or what party you support. That didn't happen. We got relief from Social Security during the income relief. That never happened. And so we have tried to work with everybody. And in fact, we have been criticized by our supporters who say sometimes they find it difficult while they see others who don't support CCM getting through. So your question is based on a fictional notion. After 7 years, I am now on the eve of a local election. Why am I campaigning against the PM and Sinkits? I didn't know the PM and Sinkits were running in the local election. Maybe you're giving me some information that you're privy to that I'm not privy to. But I believe that the speaking out about these issues has absolutely nothing to do with any election. I have outlined in my previous responses what efforts have been made to resolve. And I am not going to stay quiet now because an election may come sometime. It's due by March of 2023. But I don't think that that ought to prevent us from, in a forthright way and in an honest way, bringing information to the public. Because I have explained, I believe one of your colleagues asked earlier, well, why now and why did you take 7 years? And I've explained that I passionately believe in unity. And I passionately believe that a lot of these issues which have been festering for some time could be resolved. I'm still hopeful that they can be resolved. But that is the answer. So it has nothing to do with any local election, Mr. Hanley. I believe you would know by now that I don't need any gimmicks or any tricks to defeat what passes for an opposition party in Nevis. That's like taking candy from a baby. Easy. Clause 1110 speaks to revenue share. Has Nevis been paying its fair share? I don't have those numbers because of how the tax system is structured. But I believe if there's any wider discussion about 1110 and revenue sharing, that will be an analysis that would have to be undertaken. Currently, that is not done because, for example, as I pointed out, companies pay their corporate tax, they pay their single system filing VAT, and we don't really get into that to say, well, how much of that company should be Nevis, etc. We have just let that go as part of the wash, so to speak. We have not gotten into that debate. But if we need to, we will. And so I don't have numbers for you to tell you, but what I will say is that Nevis, in our view, is more than paying its share and not getting in return its share of proceeds, such as the CBI, that it ought to get. You say that since 2015, the federal government would have sent over $400 million. I think that was your claim. Yet you said the youth unemployment rate is over 20%. Again, I suspect that you made that number up, because as Premier of Nevis, I have no indication that the youth unemployment rate is 20%. It may sound good to you, but I think that I keep encouraging you, come with accurate information so we can respond accurately. I don't have that information, so I can't subscribe to that. You talk about incomplete projects on the island of Nevis. Again, I don't know what those incomplete projects are, because every project that we have embarked upon, we have completed that phase of the project that we committed to. So saying it's incomplete doesn't make it so. We're going to have, for example, I hear the hullabaloo about the Mondo track. We're going to have the Mini Olympics over there on the 27th of April, and I hope you attend, because the Mondo track was built for children to run on, people to exercise on. That's what we built it for. Is that an incomplete project? I hear a big talk about the pier at Wally. It's an incomplete project. Why? I use it every week. The boats are coming in. Thousands of passengers are using it. What is incomplete about it? The boats can't dock? That's what it was built for. So we have to be careful as we try the political spin that we don't convey inaccurate information. There are no projects in Nevis that are incomplete, save and except the hospital project, which is ongoing. In which construction, if you go up there now, you see construction workers up there working. Other projects, we have completed the phases of those projects that we committed to. Mondo Track, Pier at Wally, I can't think of any other, but those have been done. The Malcolm Gishard Park, that's done. Roads in Brownhill are done. Roads on Hanley's Road are done. Roads in Braziers are done. Road in Butlers is ongoing. That's understandable. Road in Bath is ongoing. That's understandable. And all around town, we are developing infrastructure. Water projects are done. Next thing we have to do in water is, as I said earlier, up at Pond Hill. That has gone out to tender. So I don't know where the projects that are unfinished are. I don't see no half-finished building anywhere in Nevis. So again, you know, that is fictional, and so I leave that. The projects in Nevis, $400 million. I don't need to list them because I think you're aware of them, Mr. Hanley. You can probably list them better than me. But we have done a number of projects across the island, in addition to which we had to use some of that money to pay our public servants in part. I continue to remind the Nevision public that our wage bill is around about $8 million, wage and pensions, $8 million a month. So if we were getting initially 2.5 and then 3.75 million a month, you realize we're not even half of our wage bill yet. We haven't paid for anything at the hospital yet. We haven't paid for any road construction. We haven't paid for anything in electricity or water, garbage collection. So that didn't even cover half of our wage bill. So again, you have to put this in context. And I would really like you to ask the reverse of that question. You say 400 million. It is not actually 400 million. I've come with accurate figures. People like to round up, but I like to get the accurate number. It's 371 million, right? That's 29 million short of 400. But the question I would like you as a distinguished member of the press to ask is, what did Sinkers do with the 4.7 billion? That's a good question to ask. We're never interested in that part of the equation, it seems. But, Mr. Hanley, I think that the monies that have come to Nevis have been spent in an open and transparent way, that each year we report on what we have done and what our plans are and how we are financing those plans, and that we have been using monies as they've come to do all that it is necessary for the government to do to continue to keep this island afloat. And I believe that particularly during the pandemic, we ought to be commended for the way that we managed the island of Nevis, that despite the hardship that many experience, the island did not collapse, and we continue to function in a way that I believe puts us best in class in terms of our response to this pandemic. I think those are the questions you asked. I trust I got all of them. Any other questions for me?
Just to follow up with the having a brain freeze now, but the figures that you would have said that that you have a financial team that would have found the figures for the CBI proceeds. However, that same financial team cannot find out how much money Nevis is paying in taxes because you would have said you don't know. So I don't know if, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know if that argument can hold up in a court of law. Your financial team can know how much money is received in Sinkits from CBI, but they don't know how much taxes are being paid into the federal system.
You did say you had a brain freeze, so I will excuse the question. But what I will tell you is that you asked me, could I give you the number? And I said, I can't. You have come to me today at the press conference to ask. I said, we have not sought to calculate or tabulate how much in terms of taxes that these companies and various entities are paying on Sinkits. We have not sought to undertake that exercise. That's different to saying we can't find out. In fact, I believe I went on to say that if the 110 conversation becomes the conversation, then we will have to find out those numbers. So there is no need for you to suggest that our financial team cannot find out. Of course we can find out. You've asked me what the number is today, and I'm saying to you that I do not have that number because we have never sought to do that analysis. But we can, if so required. There was no need for us to do that analysis because 110 has never been adhered to during the history of St. Kitts and Nevis. Since the Constitution 1983, I'm not aware that 1110 has ever really been adhered to for all that time. But if that becomes a conversation, Mr. Hanley, then certainly my team is more than competent to ferret out the numbers. So that is the answer to you. So it is nothing about a court of law or anything of that nature. Any other questions for me?
Just on behalf of my colleagues who are not here, SK and Vibes was asking if the figures was the CBI information laid before Cabinet in light of the fact that in 2020 the program was said to be only 40% of government revenue. So at any point in time, and especially in light of the 2020 figures, was that information laid before Cabinet? And ZIZ is asking, Mervyn Thompson of ZIZ is asking, if would Nevis consider a secession referendum if they are if you're failed in your successful attempts at fair share?
Was the information from CBI ever laid before Cabinet? The answer is no. And that is why we've had to ferret it out the way that we've tried to go through the various documents over the years, SIDF reports, etc., to find out what the amounts are. Is the issue of secession an issue that is currently on the table? The answer is no. It is not currently on the table. However, it is an issue that is constitutionally permitted and one that is open to the people of Nevis to pursue if and when they so decide that that is an avenue that they wish to pursue. I believe that the issues that confront us are not beyond our capacity to solve. And if it is I am naive for so believing, then call me naive. But I believe that the issues are not beyond our capacity to solve. I think now that the public has an appreciation of what the issues are and an appreciation of the efforts that have been made over the years to resolve these issues, that the public too should demand that these issues be resolved. And so the issue of secession is always there, but it's not currently on the table insofar as I'm concerned and my team is concerned. There's been no discussion of that particular issue, and we still hope that resolution is possible.
Sorry, Devon Conyers, 1FM again. Just one question, one last question. In light of the news story about the seizure of a yacht in London, is St. Kitts and Nevis cooperating with British and European countries that are seeking to seize assets owned by Russian citizens who are also citizens of Sanctions and Nevis? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cornelius. A very interesting question because currently, as I understand it, there are no international sanctions on Russia. So no sanctions, as I understand it, have been passed by the United Nations against Russia, for example. What it appears is that individual countries have sanctioned Russia. So the UK has done so, the US has done so, the EU as a bloc has also done so. And what we have been doing is cooperating with that under the usual terms and conditions. So, for example, our banks and financial institutions have already been warned not to engage with Russian entities, particularly those entities and officials that are on the sanctions list that these countries have published. You would recall, for example, Mr. Cornelius, that the US list is not the same as the EU list and not the same as the British list because they're not international sanctions, each country has designed its own approach. And so we have continued our posture of cooperation with these countries as friendly neighbors, and certainly if it is, there are criminal or other investigations that they're pursuing, then certainly we have a framework already for cooperation on those matters. I noticed that the yacht that they say was seized, they said it was owned by a Sanctions Nevis company. So I have noted that in the press reports, but I'm not aware that anything has come to us in relation to that particular matter of that yacht seized, I'm told, in the UK. So Sanctions and Nevis continues its role of, again, being a responsible international partner and being a reliable partner to our allies and friends in relation to these types of difficult matters. I am not, lastly, aware that there are any Russian assets being held in the Federation or being held by, well, let me put that differently. I'm not aware that any sanctioned individuals are holding any assets in the Federation. And so I can't respond to that. I suppose if that were to emerge, then we would have to determine what the course of action would be.
Washington Observer again, just my last question. Can we get an update on plans for the remainder of the island main road from Cliff Dwellers to Camps and also from Westbury to Camps?
We have been seeking financing, Monique, for those projects. I can't yet make an announcement on that, but we have sought a loan. And I was told that the relevant agency committee would have met on Tuesday of last week. They've requested some information from us. We intend to provide that information. The design has already been done. The costing has already been done. We're now seeking to raise the money to activate the construction. So once we can get that done, which we hope we will be able to achieve in the month of April, we should see the start of construction on that very important road project. The work that was done in terms of the surveys, the design, and the construction was Surrey Paving, because they had done the piece for us from Cotton Ground to Cliff Dwellers. And so we thought that the quality of that was very good, that we would work with them to continue that particular part of the project. The other reason is that the Public Works Department will be very involved in other projects that they're doing. So Public Works now is undertaking Butlers, which is a big project, and Bath, which is also a big project. And so we thought that to get it done within a reasonable time frame and provide relief to motorists, that we would contract it out. And since we had that existing relationship with Surrey Paving, we've spoken to them about doing it. Any other questions for me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is just after midday. I think we did pretty well. You had a question for me, Ms. Budgeon?
Can you provide an update? Because previously I've seen work being done in Bath Village. So can you give us an update on phase 2 of the Bath Road Rehabilitation Project?
Well, thank you for that. It just started. It is ongoing. What they're doing now is they have created a bypass. When you go past Vaughan Radio, that area there, and they're now dealing with what we normally do with walls and retaining walls and the like. So that is under construction. What we've done in Bath is what we're doing everywhere else. We're making sure to incorporate as much local as we can, villagers as we can. And so you'll see the walls and things being done by people from Bath. And we hope that they will assist us in making themselves available for work on that particular project. But that, I'm sorry?
Do you know how long the project will take?
Was not given an estimate in terms of time. I wouldn't want to speculate, but I would not think that that project should be more than 6 months. But we're definitely going to finish it this year, for sure. And the work is going apace. As a matter of fact, I hope to be there this weekend to inspect for myself. As you know, it's part of my constituency, what is happening. But the team at Public Works is undertaking that job, and Butler's, and of course, other secondary roads. We've just, for example, completed a road that goes up to the VOGN Primary School. And we'll be doing some more roads in St. James, what we call secondary or village roads that also need some relief. But the major project that Ms. Washington asked me about, that project is, as we say, at a stage now where we're trying to get the financing. And once we can get that, we will kick off that project as well. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for all the members of the press who came and for everyone who listened. And we look forward to engaging with you again sometime in the month of April. I assure you it will not be April 1st, because I don't want what you tell me and what I tell you to be taken seriously. So sometime in the month of April, we will engage again. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you. Those from St. Kitts, please get back safely.
There are the folks, another edition of the Premier's Monthly Press Conference, the Honorable Mark Brantley. We now present you the Win FM headline news.
You found